Transportation, air, water and land.
Transportation and travel can be discussed without taking tourism into consideration, but tourism cannot thrive without travel. Transportation is an integral part of tourism industry. It is largely due to the improvement of transportation that tourism has expanded. Transportation links the various destinations and ferries people, goods and services. Tourism is all about travel, and the role of transportation and its operation is vital. The advent of flight has shrunk the world, and the motor vehicle has made travel to anywhere possible. This reality, coupled with changing work patterns and innovative marketing, has driven international mass tourism through the years.
According to Merriam-Webster, transportation is defined as the movement of people or goods from one place to another. There are three types of transportation that you will be learning about in this module. They include land, water and air transportation. In today's lesson, we are going to learn the following: development of transport and definitions, history of travel, transportation through air, transportation through water, and transportation through land. Development of transport. From the advent of human civilization, the means of transport have evolved according to the development of technology. The discovery and application of steam and electricity in the 19th century and the internal combustion engine in the 20th century revolutionized travel and transport. The next spectacular breakthrough came in the late 1950s with the invention of aircrafts with jet engines. Travel became faster and more people could travel. Kalpan has identified transportation modes and management as the important ingredients of the international tourism system, acknowledging that linkage by air, sea and land modes is essential for the operations as well as the availability of support services such as fuel stations, auto repair, motels and rest facilities for land travel. Page and Lumsden in 2004 contend that the transportation system of a tourist destination has an impact on the tourism experience, which explains how people travel and why they choose different forms of holiday, destination and transport. The improvement in transportation modes plus low fares has increased the accessibility of areas once considered the off-beaten path. Access to tourism sites vary according to the nature of the site, the state of infrastructure, and the efficiency of the public transport system. History of travel. Transportation and travel has been revolutionized since the 1850s. Human conception of territorial space or physical distance has undergone a continuous evolution. There are 7 main eras which have contributed to the evolution of transportation. Pre-industrial era. Travel was arduous and dangerous, and very small section of the population had the money and reason to travel. This was before wide-scale industrialization occurred in Europe and North America. Early industrial era. Rapid industrialization and advanced improvement in technology brought about an improvement in roads, railways, canals and steamships during this era. There were more people with money and more reasons to travel. Railway era. Railways began marketing their services more aggressively. travel and tour operating companies were formed. Thomas Cook was one of the first companies to be formed in the 1840s in the United Kingdom. More people began to travel than in the previous era. Express era. During this era, services became more easily available, meaning that trains and other forms of transport did not stop at every station or terminal, but only at major ones. This enhanced the speed of travel, and this encouraged more travel and tourism than before. Automobile era. In the 1920s, the influence of privately owned automobile was seen in North America and Europe. Commercial air travel also had its growth between 1920 and 1945. Modern era. This era spanned between 1945 and 1974. It is still prevalent today, but some fundamental changes have taken place since the energy crisis years began in 1973-74. Mass air travel is a post-Second World War phenomenon, and introduction of wide-bodied jets in the 1970s increased air travel and tourism. Post-mobility era. The present era is the one in which travelers will continue to look in increasing number to alternate group-oriented modes of transportation. Tourist choice for the mode of transport. The following factors are the reasons for choice of transport: distance and time factor, status and comfort, safety and utility, comparative prices of services offered, geographical position and isolation, range of services offered, level of competition between services. Operational attributes of transport systems. Attributes and description. Comfort. Comfort is measured in many different ways, including the pitch of the seats, noise, quality of the waiting area, etc. Reliability. Reliability is the ability to accomplish the contract, for example, punctuality. Domestic or international. Domestic or international refers to whether or not the trip involves more than one country. In most cases, international trips require more complicated arrangements to comply with the procedures of the two different countries, such as immigration issues and regulations related to the provision of transport services through bilateral agreements. Elements. Power. Power defines the mode of transport and in most instances the speed travelled. Terminal. Terminal is the place of change from one mode of transport to another. Vehicle. Vehicle refers to the carrying unit where passengers and goods will be accommodated. Way. Way means routes divided naturally, example sea and air, or artificially, for example railways and highways. In some cases, the vehicle is subject to traffic control. Fare. Fare refers to transportation charges. The transportation charge, that can be a flat rate for any seat available or calculated by complicated pricing strategies including revenue management, where, for example, passengers flying the same flight in the same class pay completely different prices depending on how far in advance they have booked. Restrictions imposed on cancellation, length of stay in the destination. For example, passengers staying a Saturday night are charged less as they are more likely to be on a leisure trip rather than a business traveler. Intermodality. Intermodality is the ability to connect two or more different types of transport. Intermodal connections exist in different ways. Physical, where a terminal integrates two or more modes of transport in a way to provide passengers with the best technology to access the terminal and reach their final destination. Fare, where the same fare covers two or more modes of transport. Example, limousine offered by some airlines for passengers flying business and first class. Operational, where, for example, the timetables of two different modes of transport are coordinated to minimize connecting times. Institutional, where the same organization operates two or more interconnected modes of transport. Mode. Let's look at the modes of transport. Firstly, air. Air. It is the fastest mode of transport linking most parts of the world. Rail. Dedicated railways make it a reliable and safe mode of transport, usually with a high level of comfort. High-speed trains are becoming competitive with airplanes, particularly for short and medium trips of less than 1,000 kilometers. Road. Road provides the convenience of door-to-door transport. Water. Water is the slower mode of transport, but it can provide high level of comfort and amenities on board while carrying a large number of passengers, for example, cruise ships. Public or private transport. Public transport is a shared passenger transport system that can be operated and owned either by a private or public company. It is available to any member of the public, usually paying a fare to access it. Most public transports run to a scheduled timetable. In private transport, the driver or the hirer has control over who is taken on board, the route, and the destinations traveled to. Scheduled or chartered transport. Scheduled transport follows a timetable and it is required to offer the services regardless of the number of passengers on board. Charters are usually arranged for a particular customer, not having to follow a given timetable or itinerary. The term chartered flight has acquired a more specific meaning as it can be linked to holiday makers who hire a flight as part of their holiday package, in some cases flying a scheduled flight, but buying the ticket from the tour operator, not the airline. Security. It is related to a few variables, including safety issues, for example, the number of accidents or fatalities, robbery, etc. Speed. Speed refers to how fast a certain mode of transport travels. Transportation by air. Types of transportation can be broadly discussed under three main categories. Transportation by air. Aviation began to have significant impact on tourism industry after the Second World War. The modern era has been one of the most important socio-economic phenomena. Air travel is the second most popular mode of transport next to automobiles, especially for international travel. It is attractive because of its speed and range and saves time traveling on a long haul. Today, tourists prefer air travel wherever possible. Aviation industry has added more facilities for passengers and travel has been made more comfortable. The advent of jet travel is considered the most dramatic event that brought speed and mass travel to its present level. The turnaround came about with the development of inclusive tours in which the travelers are carried on chartered flights at rates substantially below those of the normal scheduled services. After 1973, worldwide oil crisis resulted in widespread recession and galloping inflation across the globe. In spite of this, the volume of air travel today has increased several times than what it was in the 1960s. The other factors that contributed to the growth of air travel are introduction of fuel-efficient jet engines, ingenuity and marketing expertise of the airlines, introduction of low fares, travel and tour operators making air travel simple and competitive. The industry has a bright future in spite of the rising cost of fuel, inflation engulfing the entire world. Airlines will continue to play a vital role in the growth of international tourism for a long time to come. Tourist traffic, as we know today, could not have grown without the development of various modes of transport from time to time. Early travel was dominated by railways and steamships. Post-World Wars saw the great development of civil aviation. It is the aeroplane, the most glamorous of all modes of transport, which came into its own in the 50s and gave international tourism a real shot in the arm. International tourism, as we know today, has been largely shaped by air travel. Transportation by water. Sea travel has also made significant contribution to journeys during the 19th century. Rail travel was popular for inland travel, especially in Europe. The steamship crossed the boundaries and made strides in intercontinental travel. Shipping technology has seen a number of innovations in the 19th century. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 brought about the possibility of a much shortened route between the West and the East, and this in turn stimulated the introduction of better steamship carriage to the Far East. The use of chartered ships for cruising and operations of cruises on a limited scale dates back to the mid-19th century. This is best described by Mark Twain in his first book, The Innocents Abroad, in 1869. The glamour of sea travel was, however, reserved for the wealthy Europeans and Americans. In luxury liners, a big space reserved for the not-so-wealthy was used by the immigrant traffic. The expansion of international tourism has, however, led to an increasing use of ferry boats by tourists for short sea crossing. By the turn of the 20th century, there has come about a change in the minds of the people to recognize the value of travel for education, earning wealth, and the need for relief from working routine. All these factors have contributed to the development of traffic on a large scale. Sea travel was always associated with the privileged class who had the free time and money. Today, tour operators cater to the middle class by offering affordable holiday plans on cruises. These packages have become very popular in the urban sector. Transportation by land. Modern roads tend to follow the structure established by previous roads, as it was the case for the modern European road network, especially in Italy, France and Britain, that follows the structure established by the Roman road network centuries before. The first land roads took their origins from trails which were generally used to move from one hunting territory to another. With the emergence of the first forms of nation-states, trails started to be used for commercial purposes as trade expanded. Some became roads, especially through the domestication of animals such as horses, mules, and camels. The use of wheeled vehicles encouraged construction of better roads to support the additional weight. However, a road transport system required an organization and administrative control that was provided by the government through military protection over trade routes. By 3000 BC, the first road systems appeared in Mesopotamia, and asphalt was used to pave roads in Babylon by 625 BC. The Persian Empire had a road of 2,300 kilometers in length in the 5th century BC. However, the first major road system was established by the Roman Empire from 300 BC onwards, mainly for economic, military, and administrative reasons. It relied on solid road engineering methods, including the laying of foundations and the construction of bridges. This was also linked with the establishment of pan-continental trading routes such as the Silk Road linking Europe and Asia by 100 BC. Following the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century, integrated road transportation fell out of favor as most roads were locally constructed and maintained. Because of the lack of maintenance of many road segments, land transport became a very hazardous activity. The Germans, however, were the first to build the modern highway called Autobahn in 1932 with specifications such as restricted access, overpasses, and road separation that would eventually become common characteristics of highway systems. The post-Second World War era represented a period of rapid expansion of road transportation networks worldwide. By the 1970s, every modern nation had constructed a national highway system initiated in 1956. The emergence of the automobile spread the benefits of tourism more widely and provided more and more people with means to travel individually or in groups. This brought about a random pattern in travel movements and opened up new destinations apart from stimulating the development of highways and roads. Road transport is attractive because the number of attractions for tourists, the ability of carrying baggage and equipment easily, the ability to use the vehicle for accommodation, privacy, low cost. Railways. The invention of railroad in Germany in the 17th century revolutionized transportation. The first railroad used wooden tracks. It was not until the early 1800s that the first steel rails appeared in the USA. With the advent of the train, mass movement of the people began. Thomas Cook is quoted as saying that his planned tours added much to the advancement of human progress. The railways are the most convenient and popular mode of travel all over the world. The introduction of railways has vastly increased the opportunities of escape from the din and bustle of the city life. The railways are considered the most powerful means of mass travel of the 19th and 20th centuries respectively. Rail travel offers a leisurely pace and unique views of scenic countryside along the routes rarely seen by air or road. Cost factor of traveling by rail has an advantage over airlines as train terminals are located in the heart of cities and generally the timings are more convenient. Growing congestion on highways has further given impetus to travel by train. In countries like America, Europe, and Japan, introduction of high-speed, luxurious trains made travel fast and comfortable. The upgradation of tracks and increase of speed in the railway system in Europe and other countries in Asia made it possible for travelers to reach various city centers in almost the same time as air travel time. Many business travelers are being lured away from air travel, especially in the continent of Europe. There is an increasing awareness among countries to save environment as a mass transit system like railways can reduce congestion in high-density towns and help reduce automobile pollution. Railways and roads carry the largest amount of traffic traveling short and medium distances.
Transport has resulted into the cause and effect of the tourism growth. Improvement in facilities related to transportation has stimulated tourism, and in turn the expansion of tourism has stimulated transport. Behind the basics of tourism transport, accessibility is the main function. Tourists will use any mode of transport in order to access the areas that are chosen for the visit. A man can now think of travelling thousands of miles in a few hours. Transportation is one of the very initial processes that man started. The history of transportation cannot be dated back to an exact time period, but we can easily assume that it has existed since man wanted to move around and explore. It can easily be concluded that the process of transportation is as old as man himself and will remain till man exists on the face of the earth. Thank you.